Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar Switching Hour. I am your host, Solaris Blue, and my wonderful guest tonight is Rey Hernandez. And Rey, you still with me over there?
Yes, I'm still with you.
Okay, excellent. We just hit a hard break there, and we're back. And let me know if you have to go early or anything like that. Just let me know. We're in hour 2 right now. So just a heads up if you, just don't know what the timeline's like over there. So.
No, we're doing fine.
Oh, excellent, excellent. All right. So before we hit the break there, we were talking about a lot of different things. You want to do a recap or switch gears there?
Yes. We were going over some of the major findings. I reviewed the first one, which was that these experiences were overwhelmingly positive. Number two was that these experiences were totally transformative for the positive, and for the transformative for the positive psychologically. It changed these individuals to a new personality profile. Number three is that this phenomenon is primarily non-physical. Okay, it's paranormal and psychic. And let me go over some questions that we asked, and some of what the individuals stated. And then I'll go over some of the anomalous contact experiences, and then I'll go over some of the physical experiences.
Okay.
We asked these individuals a question: have you ever had an out-of-body experience? 80% of them, 80% have had an out-of-body experience.
Wow.
Huge number.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you had a near-death experience? 37%. Okay. We asked them, do you believe that any of these ETs or non-human intelligence have performed a medical healing on either you or another member of your family? 50%.
Wow.
Okay. 50%. And we asked that question because that's how my first experience started. It started with our dog, who was 15 years old, was totally healed from a paralysis that she had received the night before. The next day, we were going to be euthanizing her. So my wife was praying all night, okay, for some miraculous healing, miraculous intervention. And lo and behold, that morning, we checked the dog out. The dog was still paralyzed. I went back to sleep. It was at 6 a.m. My wife carried the dog down the stairs. It was a Jack Russell Terrier that was totally paralyzed. And even before she got her paralysis, she was very, very ill. She couldn't run. She couldn't jump. She had very bad arthritis. She was taking Viagra for her heart, a diuretic to flush out the excess liquids in her body. And so she was very, very ill. So then when my wife carried her down the stairs, she saw an object in our living room floating 4 feet off the ground. It was phasing in and out of reality, but it looked like an upside-down U that was silverish, metallic looking. But again, it wasn't completely solid because it was sort of phasing in and out of reality. Then she started praying. She thought it was, an angel. And she started to call me for me to come down to see her angel. And then after I totally ignored her, after 2 minutes, she ran upstairs and hauled me out of bed. And she wouldn't tell me what it was. So I went downstairs with her. And once she got to the living room, she disappeared right in front of me with the dog. And then all of a sudden, some intelligence took over my mind, my consciousness. I didn't care that my wife had disappeared. The dog had disappeared. What I saw in the same corner where my wife later on told me that she saw this object, what I saw, what I now call a plasma energy being, which was rectangular in shape, roughly 2 feet wide by a half a foot in height, multicolored, semi-translucent, pure radiant energy flowing inside, and it didn't have any external edges, because it was pure energy. I then looked at that object, and then I didn't even care that my wife had gone, the dog had gone, disappeared in front of me, and I basically waved my hand at it, and I said, bullshit. This is what you got me down here for this crap, right? I waved my hand at it, and then I turned around, walked up the stairs, and this thing put me to sleep, knocked me out.
Wow.
35 minutes later, when I woke up, then I was fully conscious. And I was like, holy, you know what? I ran down the stairs, and then poof, my wife reappears dancing in the middle living room, singing in Spanish, "The angels cured her, the angels cured her, the angels cured her." And the dog was running around the whole living room, completely healed.
Wow. Okay. That's incredible.
And so that was our very first experience. Before that, my wife and I never had anything. You know, we didn't know anything about UFOs, the paranormal, out-of-body experiences, none of these things, and I was a total atheist, okay? And so that's why we asked that question. And also, after I asked that question, I thought it was paranormal related. So later on, I found out that there was a book that was written by this man named Preston Dennett. It was titled UFO Healings.
Right. And
that had 200 cases of individuals that had been medically healed as a result of UFO-related contact. Okay, and what happened was that half of the people wound up saying yes in our survey, the 4,200 people. And so in our book, we had a chapter that was written by Preston Dennett, the same man that 20 years had written a book on these 200 cases that nobody read, nobody cared about that book, or very few people did. And so I asked Dr. Joseph Burks, who's a retired medical doctor, to jointly write that article with him, because now you have a real medical doc with someone who had written this 20 years ago. So they took 20 case studies, and they asked permission for these individuals to interview them over the phone. And so they wrote up these 10 cases of these people have been medically healed by UFO-related non-human intelligence. Now, one of those cases happens to be a medical doctor himself.
Interesting.
So that's the medical healing aspect. Now, if I could continue with these questions,
sure.
Did your experience involve some type of telepathic or thought transference or direct knowing being given to you by NET or non-human intelligence? 78%. So
wow.
78% of these people have gotten telepathic communications. Have you had contact with a non-human intelligence in a matrix-like reality? 50%. Have you ever had a past life memory, for example, memory of your consciousness in a previous life? 66%. Have you ever seen or what can be described as a ghost or a spirit? 76%.
Wow.
Do you have memories of you visiting or receiving a glimpse of heaven or what can be called the spirit world? 46%. Have you ever seen small, less than 1 foot in diameter, colored orbs? This is seen, physically seen, not in a picture. 67%.
Wow.
Have material objects mysteriously appeared right in front of you or other members of your family? 25%. Have material objects ever fallen or suddenly moved around you or other members of your family without any reasonable explanation? 61%. Can you see or feel energy or auras around people? 74%.
That's very high.
This is just an example of the many. We asked like 3 times these questions of these type of paranormal experiences. We also asked them questions, physical changes after their contact experience. Again, I'm just going to give you 4 questions, but these are just illustrative of the more than 15 questions that we asked. I became more psychic than I was before. This is before the contact experience. 58% said yes.
Ooh.
I became able to channel information from other dimensions. 28%. I often knew things before they happened, even when there was no natural way for me to know these things. 64%.
That's high.
I found that electric or electronic devices, for example, electrical systems, lights, watches, tape recorders, computers, etc., more often malfunctioned in my presence than I remember before my experience began. 52%. Okay? So these are just illustrative of the physical changes that happen to these people. In my case, I had the ability for about a year and a half after I had this very close interaction with this huge UFO. let me just tell you the story of how that. I've had numerous experiences, mostly within a 2-year window. Okay, most of them, the first 2 years. Okay, here I was. My wife had seen multiple UFOs up close. Okay, the first one was right outside our house, which is 2 months after that initial experience in our living room. That's when I first began to realize that this was UFO related. It wasn't paranormal related. Okay. So then I was waiting for a friend of mine to give me his parking tickets. I was going to do a motion to consolidate for him. Okay. But I needed the parking ticket. So he calls me, Ray, I got the tickets. Says, where you at? I'm very close. I said, okay, I'll wait for you outside. So here I am. It's about 9 o'clock at night, 9:15 at night, August, very hot, muggy. And so he doesn't show up, and I'm waiting for him. Then I remember seeing this video of this man named Prophet Yahweh, this heavyset black man who's speaking in Hebrew, calling down a UFO craft in the middle of the day. And this little speck appeared. And he always recorded. He had numerous recordings of this. One time was with an NBC camera crew that this took place. So then I said to myself, what the hell, let's give it a try, But I was fooling around. I was just killing time. Okay. But then once I got into it, then I became very, very sincere. And it became almost like a prayer, like a meditation, that I wanted to see this craft that my wife had seen, to give them thanks, because our dog was like a little, like a puppy now, totally completely healed. And she was like our first child. And I sincerely wanted to see it to give it my thanks. Right? So after like 15 minutes of me repeating, wanting to see them and, to give them my thanks, after 15 minutes, I just said, what a freaking asshole. Here I am trying to call down a UFO. I'm going crazy. Okay. I need to stop this thing. All right. As soon as I thought that in my head, I looked up, and right on top of my neighbor's house was this huge, gigantic, I don't like to call it craft, because it was a light show that it put on for us. The bottom of it was literally 5 feet from the roof. It went up like 100 meters and like 600 meters back. It was huge. Okay. And what it was comprised was sort of like a big, gigantic Goodyear blimp was in the middle of it. There was like 3 gigantic round objects, one in the front and one in the back. And it was comprised of hundreds and hundreds of oblong streaks of light that would be going around the craft, forming the whole shell of this object. And inside was all this white, cloudy plasma energy moving around, swirling around. And so then I heard a voice that said, Daddy, you and Mommy have seen UFOs. Next time you guys see a UFO, you call me, all right, Daddy? Don't forget. And so my daughter had just turned 10 years old, right? And the last thing a sane person would do would be to bring a small child to something like this, okay? But like I told you before, this non-human intelligence, they go into your consciousness, okay, and put thoughts in there. So in my head was like, my daughter wants to see this. My daughter wants to see this, right? So I'm yelling out the window. My daughter pops up the window. What is it, Daddy? I said, hurry up, run outside. There's a UFO. There's a UFO. So she runs outside. And what is it, Daddy? I said, sweetheart, it's a UFO, but it's hiding. It doesn't want to become fully material. That's why it's just showing all these lights up there, because we have radar all over the place, from the Air Force military base, Homestead Air Force Base, and Miami Airport, and things of that sort. So, oh, thank you, Daddy. I didn't know that, So she wasn't scared. I wasn't scared. We were just being entertained, right? Then my friend comes with his wife and their 17-year-old daughter. Wait, what the hell is that? I said, you know what the hell it is? I said, no, it can't be, right? And so they were coming up with all these possible explanations of what it could be, right? So after like 2 minutes, I just bust out laughing, because it just became ridiculous what they were telling me, because I didn't tell them that I called this thing down, right? So then in my head, I then told these beings up there, I said, you better come up with some better shit than this, man, because they don't believe it, okay? That's God's honest truth, exactly verbatim what was in my head, what I communicated telepathically, and I didn't even know that you could do that. It just came out, and then all of a sudden that whole light pattern totally changed. What I just told you totally disappeared, and instantaneously thousands and thousands of stars that were 10 times the size of Venus were up there, and they were blinking on and off, like super quick, on and off, 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 like that. And by certain areas of that object, the stars would be powering up to like the size of the moon and powering down.
Wow.
And then, again, it was total mind influencing through this whole experience. Because after like 5 minutes of seeing this, my friends go, "Oh, Ray, we got to go. You know, we got, our work tomorrow. We're real busy, And then from my perspective, "Oh, don't worry about that paper I'm going to do for you. I'll email it to you tomorrow. Don't worry about that. Okay, bye-bye. See you later." Right. But then after these experiences finish, you say to yourself, what the hell? These people are in the middle of this show. They're leaving because they got to go to sleep. Okay. Mm-hmm. The next door neighbor was in that house. He saw 5 people looking up at the roof, looking right at us. Okay. Now, I didn't knock on his door and say, "Pablo, get the hell out. Look what's on top of your roof." And Pablo saw 5, and his wife saw 5 people looking at us, staring. We were staring right up on his roof. Right. The logical thing to do would be to come out and say, "Ray, what the hell's going on? Is my roof on fire or something?" Right. That never took place. Okay. So here was my daughter and I. Okay. And this total event was 45 minutes. We were interacting with this craft. This craft, I could have gotten a rock and hit it. That's how close it was. The bottom part of that craft. Okay. And then all of a sudden, I felt I was being attacked by thousands of mosquitoes. They were biting me all over. And I couldn't take it anymore. So I grabbed my daughter's hand and I go, "Come on, Shkaret is her name." I said, "Let's go inside this because these mosquitoes are killing me." Right. So we go inside the house. The door was wide open. Okay. Our dog had never come out. My wife had never come out. Now, mind you, this is 10 o'clock at night. And my wife was like a mother hen with our daughter. Okay. So she was at the door and I explained to her what happened. She goes, "Oh, how nice." Like she was just coming out of a trance or something.
Wow, that's what I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. And then I explained to her that we had to go inside because these mosquitoes were killing me. And so then my daughter goes to me, "Daddy, there were no mosquitoes outside." And when she said that, it was like a hypnotist snapped his finger, and I woke up. Okay?
Wow.
And when I woke up, I was fully cognizant of what took place. Before I wasn't. Okay? It's like your consciousness of what's going on, but you can't cross a certain line, in terms of your thought patterns.
Right.
Now I was like fully conscious. And I said, "Holy shit." And I ran downstairs. I grabbed my video camera, my real professional, photo camera, and I ran outside, but nothing was there. Okay. And that's when I realized, because for 6 months I was saying, why in the hell I acted that way inside that living room? Why did I wave my hand at this thing and just say that bullshit, I didn't even care that my wife was gone, right? I couldn't figure out why I acted that way. It was that night that I realized that these beings are able to get into your consciousness and totally influence your consciousness, And then after that started a whole series of educational training sessions related to near-death experiences, which are very lengthy, to discuss. So I myself, I had never been abducted. My wife disappeared in front of me, but she has no recollection of an abduction. Okay. Most of my friends here in Miami that have had these profound experiences, UFO-related contact experiences, they've never been abducted. Okay. But yet, okay, most of the literature is on this field, and most of the small previous research studies, statistical research studies, have been on the abduction phenomenon. What we discovered was when we asked people about abductions, it was only 1/3 of the experiences. Okay. And even then, in terms of the medical experiments, lying flat, that sort of thing, was even 1/3 of those. Okay. And then when we compare that with all of the different paranormal experiences, what we determined was that the actual physical aspects of either seeing a UFO or having that direct contact with the being, or these physical experiences associated with abductions, okay, it was actually less than 5% of what these people were going through.
Wow.
Okay. The vast majority of these experiences were the paranormal, the psychic, the ethereal, aspects of it.
Right.
Okay.
What about missing
like
time?
what I've been telling you.
Right. Yeah.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. Tons of people missing time. Tons of people missing time. And the other thing is that unlike a lot of people who are on the YouTube, these YouTube sensations that they're talking about, every week they're having a contact experience and they're repeating it on Gaia TV, for 2 or 3 hours of what took place. Okay. That has not happened with anyone that has taken our surveys. Okay. Most of the people that have had these experiences, they get it in the contact experiences are small glimpses of it. Okay. For short durations.
Right.
Like you'll see the being, you might be interacting with him for a short time, and all of a sudden, boom, it's like a totally different scenario, totally different place. It's like you lost all that time. Those are the vast majority of these experiences. Or the actual experience with the being is a very small fraction, of the time. It might last a minute at most, that type of thing. But in terms of these experiences that are 2 hours, with these beings, no. Those are majority of these things are things that are brought out through hypnotic regression, not through a conscious memory.
Exactly.
What Dr. John Mack stated was that only 30% of the experiences of these individuals were through conscious memory. 70% were through hypnotic regressions. And he also stated that hypnotic regressions is an extremely important tool, but also an extremely manipulative tool.
Correct. Yeah, you have to trust whoever's doing those. Yeah, absolutely.
You have to trust who's doing it. Well, you don't have the leading questions. The person cannot have any bias, that sort of thing. So that's why in our surveys, we asked individuals to answer only based upon conscious explicit memory, not upon lucid dreams, because what the hell is a real lucid dream, or what the hell is just someone's dream? Okay.
Correct.
Through hypnotic regressions, you have thousands of people have taken these Dolores Cannon, 1 hour hypnotic regression courses. Okay. I took one of those. I think I paid like $200 or $300. Okay. It was like a 2 or 3 hour course. Okay. Now, does that give me the right to go out and do hypnotic regressions of these individuals? Okay.
No. Well.
Yeah. So that's why this whole field of hypnotic regressions, even though Mary Rodwell does hypnotic regressions, Kathy Martin does hypnotic regressions, Leo Sprinkle has done hypnotic regressions. Okay, but the vast majority of people in our group still see the potential problems associated with hypnotic regressions.
Oh, I agree. I have to really know what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like for example, these memories. People might have read a David Jacobs book or seen a YouTube video or spent like 3 or 4 days after they've had an experience with a gray that has popped up in their bed. Okay.
Right.
All of a sudden they go to the internet, for 4 or 5 months and only watching these horror videos. Okay. So then they go in for a hypnotic regression and pop, here comes this horror, experience through hypnotic regression,
Yeah. They get that imprint subconsciously.
That imprint. Correct. Yeah. So that's why, this whole field is tainted with a lot of problems. So that's why we just ask for conscious explicit memories.
I love it. And that's why I love the work you're doing. And I applaud you. And I do want to thank you and every one of your personnel and staff and crew, everybody. They're just fantastic. Put all this data together. That takes a lot of
most of these people, Solaris, have been in this field for more than 30 years. Leo has been in this for 50 years. Okay.
Wow.
Rudy used to work with Dr. John Mack, with the people that have had these experiences. Mary Rodwell, 30 years. Kathy Martin, more than 30 years. She herself was an experiencer, has had all these experiences since she was a teenager. Her aunt was Betty Hill. So, almost everybody in our Giorgio Piacenza, in his late 50s, he was having direct physical contact experiences since the age of 14. So these are people that have been in this field, very knowledgeable about this field. But even then, all of them, they knew that medical healings were taking place, but they just didn't have the percentages.
Right.
They knew it was very common. They knew people were being brought to other realities, like Jodie Foster. Okay, but they just didn't know what percentages. Also, It might have been people that were just going to Mary Robo, or people that were just going to Kathy Martin or to Leo Sprinkle, but they don't go to David Jacobs, because the people that go to David Jacobs are only the people that are, have these negative experiences, right? So you don't know what is what out there. But what our research study, the way we publicized it to over 500 Facebook sites over a 3-year period. We went to 100 radio shows, ufology radio shows, the paranormal, spirituality radio shows. We sent it to over 5,000 individuals on a mailing list. Basically, if you've ever wrote a UFO book or a paranormal book, you got a copy of our survey. If you're an experiencer, you've had these experiences, and you wrote a book, and we were able to get your email, you got a copy of our survey. So it was widely disseminated all over the world. And that's why we had, such a tremendous success in getting responses. And it did show that people were having a broad range of experiences. Some of them were physical, some of them were non-physical. And I could go over some of the physical stuff, some of the physical aspects and the abduction stuff, if you want to hear that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So. We ask questions. Do the ETs have a personality? Okay. 971 people said yes. Did you deliberately call to see an ET? 783 said yes. Did an ET ever physically touch you? 767. Do you believe that any of these ETs have performed a medical healing on you? 732. Did you ever wake up and see an ET in your bedroom? 718. Wow. Do you believe that the ETs placed a permanent foreign object in you? 772. Have you woken up to see puncture wounds in your skin? 642. Do you believe that you or an ET have ever reached an agreement? 579. Have any of these ETs been playful with you? 568. Did you ever see an ET holding something? 494. Have you ever suddenly had a rapid healing that you believe was a result of the ET intervention? 463. Can you consciously recall lying on a table or on a bed being examined by an ET? 449. Was there any type of agreement for you to be taken on board a craft? 291. Can you consciously recall lying on the table or a bed and having an ET operate on you? 266. If you believe that you are a part of an ET breeding program, were you ever presented with an ET child? Okay, 225. Did ETs ever tell you that you have had some type of a healing procedure? Did the ETs tell you that, look, we healed you? 204 people. Have you ever experienced a transfer of your soul or spirit into another entity, be it another human or another ET? 194. Have you ever had what is commonly called a military abduction, a MILAB, where a human abducted you? 173. Okay? So those are just some physical. Now, we also asked the question, have you had an ET, non-human intelligence, contact, but have no conscious recollection of ever being abducted, which is defined as taken against your will to another location? In other words, have you had ET contact, but you have not had an abduction? 68% said yes, I've had ET contact, but not an abduction. Okay? So that means the other percent, okay, which is 32%, have had an abduction. Wow. Okay? So all these abduction studies have basically missed out on 68% of the people. Okay? All these people, for example, I go on all these radio interviews. They always refer to me as Rey Hernandez as an abduction studies researcher. Okay? The first thing I tell these people is that, look, by you calling me that, you're totally dissing 68% of the people. Okay? You're totally forgetting about 68% of the people. What we're doing is not abduction research. What we're doing is research on people who have had UFO-related contact. By just calling me an abduction researcher, you're totally eliminating 68% of the population. Now, our data was able to demonstrate that exactly to what percent.
Yeah, it's fascinating. What about blood types? Did you factor those in or no?
Yes, we asked a question on blood type. Now, again, there's this whole stereotype about, the RH negative, I've been targeted because I'm RH negative,
Right.
Well, we determined that was bullshit.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay. 14% of the people are RH negative. Okay. Well, guess what's the percentage of U.S. population that's RH negative? 14%. Okay. So all of this stuff that's circulating on the internet, bullshit. And we've got data from thousands of people. Now, there's some people that are collecting data, okay? But they're just collecting data, people that listen to all these abduction shows and, and people call in. These are not, academically and scientifically collected, in a neutral type of format like we did,
Right. Makes a difference.
It has to be done, the general, population, people, everyone taking the survey. The survey has to ask, almost, 800 questions, whatever. And one of those just happened to be, the blood stuff, not just having a study just on the blood type and you selectively picking people and choosing. No, it doesn't work that way.
Right. Very, very interesting. Can I ask you a quick question about the telepathy? When
Yes.
I don't know if you can answer or not, but when these particular contactees had experiences with telepathy, is it an exchange insofar as ebb and flow, that there's a receiving and there's a transmitting? It's a conversation versus just commands.
It's all different. It's all different.
Just curious.
Like for example, like in my case with that ship, okay, I just had that thought pattern. I said, look, my friends don't believe you. You got to do something different here. Boom, that thing, whatever that intelligence was, read my mind and interacted with it. With other people, they've gotten direct messages from these beings. Do you mind if I go over some of these messages?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Let me just look it up here.
Okay.
Because I'm closed off in the bathroom here, so I don't wake up. I don't wake up the rest of my family.
I know it's late. Thank you so much for being on tonight. I know it's late for you.
No problem. Let me go over. Let me just look for the page for that. What the Okay. Communications received from non-human intelligence. Okay. Was the communication in your native language? 75% said yes. And for the Spanish-speaking survey, the same thing. Like 80% of the people said yes. It was in Spanish. Okay. In German, people took our German survey. We have like 300 people. Again, like 80% of the people said yes. It was in German. Did these? Remember, we always used. We had defined ET as non-human intelligence. That was a note. Okay. So whenever I use that word ET, I mean non-human intelligence. Did the ETs impart reassuring messages to you? 61% said yes. Did the ETs provide you with a spiritual message? 54%. Did they give you a message of love or oneness? 54%. Did they express concern about humanity's behavior? 45%. Do you believe you possess information about advanced technology, physics, or other scientific information that you have never read or learned in your normal environment? 42% said yes. These are the people that are getting the science and physics downloads. Okay? 41%. Did the ETs give you an environmental message regarding Earth? 39%. Did the ETs tell you about a future natural catastrophe or a depopulation of humanity? My wife got that message. That's 32%. Okay? Did the ETs give you any message about God or a creator? 31%. Did the ETs ever tell you about the concept of parallel universes? 31%. Did the ETs give you information about the death process, about life after death, the spirit world? 30%. Did the ETs ever tell you about the concept of time, that time doesn't exist? 30%. Was any of this ET communications concerning life after physical death? In other words, the spirit world? 29%. Did the ETs tell you your mission here on Earth? 29%. Okay? It goes on and on and on and on. Okay?
Wow.
The reincarnation, remember I told you about? 26% was about reincarnation. Did they tell you information about advanced physics? 26%. It's just tons and tons of questions they kept. Now, let me ask you questions. Let me inform you questions related to spirituality, mystical, or extraordinary experiences. Okay. I already told you about that the ETs give you messages of love or oneness. That was 54%. Provide you spiritual messages, 53%. Okay. Now this is either agree, disagree, or no opinion. So let me just tell you the percentage that's the person said, yes, I agree with it. Okay. No matter what your religious belief is, there is life after death. 81% said yes. We are already in, or at least on the verge of a new age. And the ETs have a role in this new age. 79%. I believe that the changes I've undergone since becoming interested in UFO experiences are part of an evolutionary unfolding of humanity. 78%. Evolutionary forces already at work, which will transform humanity at large into a more self-aware, spiritually sensitive species, and that the ETs have a role in this. 74%. My thinking became more holistic. 74%. We are now living through a time of greatly accelerated spiritual evolution. 73%. I believe that my UFO experiences occurred as to awaken me to the existence of a larger cosmic forces which are affecting our lives, and that the ETs have a role in this. 72%. In my opinion, the widespread occurrence of UFO experience is part of a larger plan to promote the evolution of consciousness as a species-wide scale. 71%. I believe that my UFO experiences were arranged or designed by a higher intelligence, and that ETs have a role in this. 69%. I became more sensitive to other realities, to other dimensions. 69%. I believe that I am a more spiritual person now than I was before my interest in UFO experiences. 66%. I felt I had flashes of cosmic consciousness at times. 63%. Telepathic or other forms of psychic awareness between me and others increased. 62%. Okay, I could go on and on and on and on and on. You see how people have changed as a result of all of this.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And that leads me to ask you about DNA activation. And, with ascension work, I'm sure you're familiar with that, and mystical works. But the DNA seems to be, altered through an osmosis effect, almost through the experience.
That's why we asked that question, and it seems like I would have to look up that specific question, but there were many, many people. I would estimate at least 50% of the people that said yes.
It's fascinating.
That they suspect that. In terms of the ETs, it wasn't a lot of the, if I remember the question, it was like around 30% of the people said yes to that. The ETs told them about that. But the other, 50% total said that they suspect that.
Very interesting. I'll tell you what. Are you going to be doing more of these profiling, or are you going to be doing any more surveys down the road?
No, because this was just too extensive. This is 5 years of people's lives, that were devoted to this. And we were even accused by this very high-profile researcher in this field. If I mentioned the name, people would know that name. She's accused us of being CIA agents, So it's just unbelievable. You're trying for the first time to do this research. You're being attacked as being CIA people. And yet here we are, protecting people's identities because this is all done anonymously. We're doing it academically and scientifically. And yet people are sacrificing 5 years of your life, for this thing here at numerous, thousands of hours dedicated to all of this.
Right.
And most of the people in our group are quite elderly. I mean, Edgar Mitchell died. Rudy Shield has had, 3 brain surgeries. He's in his late 70s. Dr. John Climo also had a major illness. He's pretty much in hospice, now. Brad Steiger just passed away, a few months ago. He wrote his conclusion in hospice care, in his deathbed. And so, most of the folks in our group, Leo Sprinkle had to leave our group because he's now, I guess, 90 years old, I think now. And he said that we were just working him to death, that he's 90 years old. Yeah. Kenneth Ring, the same thing. He said that he's like 82 years old now. He just, doesn't have the energy to, So you see what we're getting at,
Oh, yeah. But I'll tell you what a service you've done. I have to say, I applaud all of you, and I thank you for this beautiful, I can't wait to read this book. And I want to thank you for sending it my way. Beyond UFOs, The Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligence, Volume 1. And I just, it's on Amazon, right? Yeah.
On Amazon. And we have two websites. One website is consciousnessandcontact.org. Consciousnessandcontact.org. And the other website is experiencer.org. Experiencer.org.
Beautiful.
And we have links so people can get the 120-page chapter 1, which is what I've been reading from all night, all those statistics. That's for free. You can read that for free on our websites. And if you like what you read, then you can buy the book. And so we also have the prelude written by Dr. Rudy Shields. We have the table of contents, so you can see all the authors and all the chapter titles. We have a couple of videos in there. Also, we're doing a series of documentaries. That we have this major documentary film crew. They've done a series of Star Trek-related documentaries that are on Netflix right now. And they've been working with us pro bono, pretty much, because the wife of the main producer there, she's an experiencer, and they live here in Miami. Yeah, so it's for the first time we're going to be doing these documentaries, but bringing in physicists, astrophysicists, neuroscientists into this discussion. Because
Very nice.
Right now, it's filled with so much misinformation, disinformation. Lunacy, just sheer lunacy, because I'm very opinionated, as you can tell.
No, I agree with you. But you know what? I was getting turned off by the UFO community. I'll be honest with you, because of that, because of it's been so dirtied and watered down. It makes me sick. And I love the way you're presenting this data. I really do. And the stream of consciousness and the way it's being relayed on a scientific and mystical level too. Yeah. No, I understand. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
You understand, but if you would ask, many of these mainstream ufologists, they just don't get it. They just don't get it because they've been trained just to look at pictures, look at videos, look at pieces of metal, walk around with the Geiger counter, see what the hell that Geiger counter tells you. What has that given us in 70 years? Really, what has that given us in 7 years? Nothing. Nothing. That approach has given you nothing. But yet, when you talk to experiencers that are having these experiences, they can tell you that, look, this is one of our major findings was that because all of this was primarily paranormal and psychic and ethereal type of experiences, instead of these physical experiences, they could tell you that there's a manipulation of space-time in this. Okay, and that in turn leads you to the hypothesis that we're dealing with multiple dimensions here. Okay, that's exactly what the godfather of ufology, the two godfathers of ufology, Jacques Vallée and Alan Hynek, stated more than 40 years ago. That this is both a physical phenomenon and a psychic phenomenon, and that there is a manipulation of space-time. Okay, but yet. Vallée's approach has been totally ostracized from the field of ufology. But meanwhile, there's no other person, that knew more about this phenomenon than Vallée. And even Whitley Strieber, the spokesperson for these nuts and bolts, fear-mongering approach, all of a sudden, this man has undergone a complete and total spiritual transformation as a result of these experiences. And he'll tell you, we're dealing with a multi-dimensional phenomenon. That we're dealing with a phenomenon that all of the paranormal is all interrelated. okay?
Mm-hmm.
But yet Willie Strieber is also totally isolated from the field of mainstream ufology. And same thing with Mary Rodwell. She'll tell you the same thing. And she's worked over 3,000 cases. Kathy Martin, the same thing. Even though she started off as a mainstream nuts and bolts ufologist, now she's gone to the light side. You know,
Right.
She was Darth Vader before. You know, in terms of all these mainstream ufologists viewing, just viewing the physical aspects of it. But now, it's, as people begin to learn about this phenomenon, they get to soon realize over many, many, many years, the researchers, that look, this is much, much more complicated than I originally had thought. Okay.
Yeah.
And Edgar Mitchell told me many, many times, he says, Ray, we know the equivalent of one grain of sand in an entire beach. And the first time he told me that, I responded, I said, Edgar, and that's just one beach. Okay. Implying that we're dealing with a multiverse here. So if we can barely understand our own reality, how in the hell are we going to be able to understand a multiverse reality?
Right. Yeah. And it's probably one of the codes as keys to enlightenment, which is really what you're talking about, too. I mean, it seems to me like all these contactees have been upgraded in consciousness.
Oh, that's the whole purpose of what's going on. That's the whole purpose.
Yeah.
Everyone will tell you, like, remember those questions I was reading off, that these ETs are having a whole upgrade of humanity, that's exactly what's going on. And from my perspective is, why in the hell you don't do that to everybody?
Right.
Why are you selectively choosing and doing it to selective people? Are you doing like a small sample case study? If you do it with a few people, what might be the results? I mean, who knows? I mean, this is the world's greatest jigsaw puzzle. And all these people that you hear on these radio shows, these internet, these ufology conferences, that they know it all. They get treated as gurus, as little demigods. Those people are totally clueless. They're clueless.
I know.
Clueless.
I agree. Yeah, and they're copycats. They cut and paste. They data mine on the internet. They come up with a story, and people eat up like ice cream. I don't get it. I truly don't get it. Don't get me started.
and to me, they're doing such a grave disservice to humanity because all they're doing is just continuing to spread more disinformation. Yep,
I agree. Yeah, that's why I appreciate the work you're doing. Go ahead.
No, thank you. And again, I want to reiterate to all your listeners is that my position, and which is the position of everyone else in our board of directors, is that we know almost nothing of what's going on. Okay? We know almost nothing. That's how complicated and profound this phenomenon is. And that anyone that pretends that they have answers, they're totally freaking clueless.
Yeah, that's a good point you make right there. You know, it's interesting when you're talking about why doesn't everybody get activated with this particular contactee experience. I'm wondering if it has something to do with their frequency to begin with. Maybe they're just not vibrating at the right level to be interconnected or contacted.
Well, I don't think that was my case or so many other people. Here I was, an attorney doing boring tax work, total atheist. I didn't even want to go to church with my wife, I had not an ounce of spirituality in me. And all of a sudden, it's like I got hit over my head with a sledgehammer, an ET sledgehammer,
That's funny.
And again, the one way they work with people in so many different individual ways, okay? Like with me, it was this whole, we don't have enough time, but over a 4-month period, they indoctrinated me with all these near-death experiences, reading all these NDE books. That's all I did for 4 months after I saw that huge crash. Okay. The next night, I saw an NDE video, okay, for the first time ever. And all of a sudden, I ordered 20 books from Amazon. And I spent 12 hours a day just reading NDE books. Didn't do any of my work. Didn't care about anything. Didn't care about TV or the internet or my wife or, anything. Just 12 hours a day reading these NDE books. There were 4 or 5 books left. I ordered 20 more. 5 books left, 20 more. 5 books left, 20 more. That occurred for 4 months. At the end, I wasn't showering. I wasn't shaving. I was, I was a total madman. My wife was going to divorce me. And then 3 days in a row, December 21st, December 22nd, and December 23rd. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. This 2012. Okay? Those 3 days, the first 3 people I ever mentioned near-death experiences to in my life, because I never mentioned it to anyone in my life, all 3 of them had NDEs.
Wow. No coincidence.
Okay? No coincidence. The first one was my daughter's pediatrician. The second one was this man at church. His name was Max, and a Saturday night at a church dinner was a social function. And then the last night was my father, and he had the most profound NDE of anyone. He told me he was up there for 20 to 30 years. I said, what do you mean you were up there for 20 to 30 years? Because it took God 20 to 30 years to show me all the good things I had done in my life and all the bad things. Okay? And he went into all the details, and that was confirmed by my mother, that he told that story after he had just come out of open heart surgery. Okay? So, but I didn't even get it until my father. Okay? Because here I was reading all these NDE books, having all these experiences, but I was such a hardcore material rationalist, atheist, okay, that it was when I left my father's house that it finally hit me like a ton of bricks. I rolled down the windows and I looked up at the stars, and for the first time in my life, I talked to God. Okay? And I talked to God and to this non-human intelligence that's been working with me. And I said, I just want to thank you. Because in a 4-month period, you have totally transformed an atheist material rationalist into someone that doesn't have a belief, but has a knowing that we are eternal spiritual beings. And I have this knowing more than any Catholic priest in Miami. And for that, I want to thank you.
That's beautiful. Wow, that's just beautiful. Yeah. And that's the magic of life and consciousness. I just, I don't know what to say about that.
But I'm not just the only case. We've had thousands of people that have taken our surveys that have had not the same experience, but very similar experiences.
Yep.
And people are being transformed by these experiences, but yet you don't hear that.
Right. Exactly.
People are being healed by non-human intelligence, but you don't hear that. Okay? All you hear is about the wicked and evil aliens that they're going to be invading us.
Right. So true. Yeah.
Okay, but there is that side of they are doing medical inspections on us. They're checking up on us. Okay, but you have to realize that that at least some of these beings that are interacting with us, they're sort of like angelic, with angelic powers.
Right.
And yet, on the other hand, you're having these physical beings that are checking up on us, They might be taking DNA from us, that sort of thing. But maybe it's because we've freaking have blown up humanity in the past several times, that they're replenishing our stock. We don't know, okay? But what we do know was that if they wanted to kill us, to blow us up, they could do it with a blink of an eye.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think they could wink this whole world out, without a doubt.
Exactly.
If they really wanted to.
Yeah.
No doubt there.
So
I tend to believe.
What's happening?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you go ahead, please.
No, we're going to run out of time here. I was saying I tend to believe that some of the military abductions are connected to obviously our covert intel and some of the maybe the black ops and black science department. So it could be more insidious, but that's just
we've had, as is shown, roughly 2/3 of the people that have had these physical inspections have been my labs.
Right. Yeah. So that tells me that's a different area, and maybe not even connected really, insofar as the beautiful celestial types, the off-worlders. So just my own thoughts, but. Yeah, I know we're going to run out of time here in a few minutes, but I wanted to let everybody know once again how to reach out to you. And I have to thank you so much. It's been wonderful to have you on tonight. I really appreciate you and everything you've been doing. I think it's fantastic, and I want to thank you. And I think you're going to be on hyperspace.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Solaris.
Yeah, absolutely. You're a wonderful being. You really are. So what a transformation. Yeah, your DNA is switched on and riding high.
Yeah. No, it's now my life is, I have a purpose in life. Before I didn't have a purpose in life. And my purpose in life is to do what they're doing, which is to awaken humanity to our multidimensional reality.
And you're doing a wonderful job in the work.
And to show that, that each of us has our mission, that we are eternal spiritual beings, and that there is, quote unquote, life after death, and that there is non-human intelligence that's guiding us, that's working with us.
Exactly.
That's really important. We don't have the answers. We don't know why, but it's happening.
Right, and in times like these where everyone's getting really distracted and polarized, I think this is important information. Once again, let everybody know how to get in touch with you real quick, just your website. And
Yes, we have 2 websites. Our website is consciousnessandcontact.org. Once again, it's consciousnessandcontact.org. The other website is experiencer.org. And there you would have multiple information, articles, academic articles about our research study, about experiencer support, articles about consciousness. And also for those of you that live in Florida, we're going to be having an experiencer conference, an entire day for only $50 here in Miami, Florida.
Excellent. And they can look that up. And we're out of time here. Okay, perfect. And we're out of time. Thank you so much, Ray. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. Don't forget to stay tuned for Shining Side Out with David Dundra Mecki. Coming up next to sign you on tonight for John Hunter with her awesome show. We'll be talking about immortality, so tune in, everybody. All right, thank you again, Ray. It's been wonderful to have you on board tonight.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Good night, everybody.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Revolution Radio.
You don't see it, do you? How close we are to absolute chaos? The sick ones are sitting on their fat asses, eating and drink themselves into a stupor, polluting the world without a second thought while it goes down the toilet. Nobody wants to do the nasty work. You know, the shit that we all just think about. Most good citizens are just along for the ride and then bitch and moan and complain about everything when it doesn't work out. Not me. Get it done.
Revolution Radio, where we do the nasty work. www.freedomslips.com.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent